Bajtos. I'm intern at Bratislava Policy Institute, and this year we are making a project about elections in Europe. Today we have a host, Ana Catarina Caldeira, who is a PhD student in communication science, who also work as freelance journalist and researcher, and also has a podcast, Pink Talks. So I'm glad that you are here, and today we'll be talking. Today we'll be talking about elections in Portugal, which will be held at 10th March, and it will be snap elections. So. Can you explain us what actually happened and why the government of the Antonio Costa falls, or why he resigned?
Yeah. So what happens? What happened was the Portuguese judicial system was making inquiries about some deals that were being made in Portugal, and the name of the prime minister supposedly was mentioned. So the ministry justice department basically held out an official communicating that they were investigating a possible case, and the last paragraph that they wrote basically mentions the prime minister. What happened was that in a very short time, because the prime minister was mentioned, he quit and he resigned. But actually, the week after, what we discovered was that his name was mistranslated. So because we had another person that was also called Antonio Costa, so it was a little bit of a mess. But in the meantime, there were some polit- some I'm sorry, some investigations within the cabinet members. And they found basically, I think it was 70,000 euros tucked away in books. And the person itself didn't manage to explain why he had that money. So what happens is that Antonio Costa would resign regardless. It just like happened sooner. So what we saw here was basically the judicial system without any concrete proof, because the people that were mentioned in this accusation was brought to justice, and the judge didn't find that there was enough evidence for them to be prosecuted. So I think just like one or two people from a possible company continue to be investigated, but every member of the government and linked to Antonio Costa was acquitted in this first stage. So what we saw basically was the judicial system making accusations without the proper proof. And then that basically was what happened in the beginning. And we are basically, some of our political commenters here in Portugal, they talk about the crisis of regime, the democratic regime, with these influences by the judicial
Mhm.
system um, in the government system. So yes,
Um,
that was basically in like a flash what happened. But
uh,
if you want me to elaborate, like I can answer your questions.
Mr. Costa also stepped down as a leader of his socialist party,
Yes.
and if I'm correct, he's like quitting politics. So for now, at least, uh, what was like the biggest political consequences of this allegation or scandal, and how it shaped the current political situation before the snap election in Portugal?
So for the Socialist Party. And we should mention that in Portugal, the Socialist Party, it's not the Communist Party. We do have a Communist Party,
Mm-hmm.
but it's called Communist Party, not Socialist Party. So the Socialist Party is like a center-left party. Uh, what happens? They held internal elections, and they elected a new leader. Actually, he's ex-minister from Antonio Costa. He's one of the younger part of the younger generations. He's regarding not like a left center, but more on the left
Mm-hmm.
within the Portuguese Socialist Party. Um, he's regarded as someone who is who's trying to build his moderate image to try to bring to the table the more central in the left. But what happened is, and this is like what's most concerning, is that the party, the right wing party, Chega, who has some who is in the same strand of right wings or extreme right wings parties that we are seeing in Europe, actually is building his campaign
Mm-hmm.
with one of the, of course, many other issues, but with an anti-corruption platform. Alongside with this, he's also running with the idea of um, anti-immigration, anti-gender issues. So we are seeing here in Portugal some repercussions of his platform, of his campaign. For example, last um, the last weekend on Saturday the 3rd, uh, it supposedly was going to be held extreme right wing protests here in Portugal, who was prohibited, but nonetheless, I think like 2,000 extreme right wing and Nazis held the protest nonetheless. So what we are seeing is like almost a permission, because he has this huge platform for the extreme right wing and Nazi ideology parties and movements to return a little bit more to the forefront of the Portuguese life. So my main concern, basically, regarding these next elections, because this week's polls actually gives the right wing parties, center right wing parties, with the 32% of intentional votes, um, followed then for the with the Socialist Party, but Chega, he's gaining space, and he actually has a 20% of intentional of votes today. So my main concern, because the leader from PSD, who is from the right wing, central right parties here in Portugal, is actually a weak leader. He's not a really strong leader. We are seeing in the political debates that he doesn't have ideas per se. He doesn't know how to argue ideas. My main concern is that after the elections, he wins, but he doesn't have a majority, and then he builds an alliance with Chega, and Chega may may gain power like that. So
So
I think
for now, it's or are you expecting that it will be probably the new government and the winners of the election will be some form of right center and extreme right coalition?
yes. Because I don't know if you know, but Portugal has two islands, Açores and Madeira, and they do have their own internal governments. So Açores had his first election and PSD won.
Mhm.
So we are now trying to see if the PSD from Açores is going to make an alliance with Chega, and sometimes the elections in the islands may be seen as a precursor to what's going to happen in the continent. So this is like a multifactorial situation that we are seeing. So we had the Socialist Party for 8 years in power, the last elections with a majority. People, it's normal in the political system for people to get tired when you have an extended period with one party in government. So this is like normal. What happened was the media in itself also had some, and for me, for my point of view, also has some blame because of the way that they approach some of the cases of corruption.
Mhm.
So we are now seeing, for me at least in Portugal, not a very good um, state of the journalism and the work that journalists do. So it's more about audiences that enlightening people and do proper research. Then we had the case with Antonio Costa and the way the why and the causes why he resigned. But we are also seeing, and this is like a trend in Europe, the rise of the far right also. So, but the problem is, Chega André Ventura, who is who is the leader of Chega, he's not dumb. He's actually a really intelligent man. He knows what he's doing. If we are going to analyze his path in politics, we do see he has clear intentions. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to work an audience. He knows how to use some strategies that, for example, with propaganda, we see it for in like the Second World War. He actually has he has a really strong base within young people because he entered, especially TikTok, in a very early stage,
Mhm.
and he has a huge followers with within the younger generation. He knows how to um, speak his argument in a very clear, very simplistic way. So I think it's multifactorial what's
Mhm.
happening here in Portugal.
So
It's really complex.
so it's like do you think like the social media and are also the problem how the people are sharing these things and what he's sharing and
Yes, of course. And for example, fact checking. One of his strategies, uh, I was really interested to see what he was and Chega was going to do within his own convention, political convention. And I actually did the fact checking for what was said
Mm-hmm.
by him and by some of the his political cabinet or leaders, if you want. And 98% of what they said was a lie, but because basically I've done the work of checking the reports from the Portuguese institutions regarding immigration, regarding the payment of taxes, regarding gender issues. For example, we have a huge package that was approved before Antonio Costa
Mm-hmm.
resigned for gender issues. And he basically stated that if he um, gets to be elected, he's going to revoke that
Mm-hmm.
package. So that package has like 80% of it is for trying to deal with domestic violence, gender pay gap, minorities, regarding all of that stuff. And what he's focusing is of giving money for gender issues for minorities. So yeah, most people don't do fact checking, does not have any kind of media literacy, and they consume social media in a very strong way in a daily basis. So these kind of discourses are easy to pass, especially when people are feeling that they don't have security, that they are underpaid, or that they don't have access to, or, or the quality of the health system in Portugal is declining.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really easy for him to have some kind of sound bites that appeals to people, and then he can grow a little bit more his platform.
So, from what we are hearing from you, and if I see it right, it's if you look at the key issues of the campaign, uh, now it's like some combination of disinformation and cultural war, or how they say, like it's cultural
Yeah.
war, as we see in the many other European countries.
Yes. uh, Anti-immigration, gender issues, um, salaries, housing, because we are
Mm-hmm.
living a big housing crisis here in Portugal, especially in Lisbon, for example. You can only rent a room, not a house, but a room for, I think, like it can reach 1,000 euros or more for a room. So so he's pinpointing specific issues for people. The fact that the healthcare system is having troubles with, for example, doctors. We
Mm-hmm.
are seeing doctors going to the private sector. So we are seeing, or we are feeling that we are missing doctors. So he's running on these classical issues with a really strong emphasis on anti-immigration, on anti-minorities, on combating corruption, on having a distinction between good Portuguese people and bad
Mm-hmm.
Portuguese people. So the bad Portuguese people are the ones who receive, for example, payment, or for example the Roma people. He uses a lot of these discourses, but in fact when you are actually going to fact check all of these issues, he's completely wrong. So the Roma people is not the majority of people who receive help from the state. The minorities are not the majority who receive help from the state. Immigrants actually pay a huge amount of taxes. So the latest report, for example, explains that, for example, immigrants from Brazil, they pay 40% of taxes that we have on a global sphere. So we are seeing he's actually feeding on people's fears. So you are completely right. What's happening in Portugal, it's what's happening in France and Spain and all of the other countries. So it just arrived a little bit late.
So aside of these cultural wars, uh, in probably in the whole Europe for the last 2 years, we have huge economic problems, problems with inflation. So, like, what is the current social situation of the Portuguese people?
So Portuguese people has one of the lowest um, base salaries in Europe. This accompanying with the fact that we are seeing an increase in the housing prices because we are having a very strong influx of very wealthy people, either from Italy, France, or other countries that have a more of an income. So what we are seeing basically is that people are being, for example, regarding the housing crisis, people are being driven to the limits of the biggest cities. And that implies that they will spend more time in public transports or in cars to reach their work. They are feeling that they are paying more taxes that they should. So we have another party who is the Iniciativa Liberal. So they are all about reducing taxes and reducing the weight of the state and government in people's lives. So they are running with this idea of minimizing and liberating everything, liberalizing taxes and minimizing the the weight of the state, basically. Uh, what happens is that the quality of life of the Portuguese people are not being met. We are seeing people that are working multiple jobs, younger people who are uh, it's really difficult for the younger generations to reach the working market. We are seeing people leaving the house because they don't have the financial stability to leave their parents' house really late in life, in mid 30s basically, or we are seeing some of the older generations returning to their parents' houses because they don't have the financial stability to live on their own. So this is like the perfect storm for these elections and for this kind of movements, far right movements or extreme far right movements, to plead their case and have people joining their ranks. I don't know if I answer your question. If you want to reframe the question, I can like answer in a different way.
I think I understand it, but from what you said, like, um, it looks like there are many conflicts on many levels, and I also want to ask about role of Europe or um, positions of political parties on the foreign affairs. Uh, for example, Bratislava Policy Institute is located in Slovakia, and war in Ukraine and relationship with Ukraine are a really big topic in Central and Eastern Europe. Uh, how is it in Portugal? Is it like more unifying question, or people and political parties are divided?
So we have two political parties who are anti-European. They are from the left, actually. So it's the Communist Party and Bloc Esquerda. He's not pro, but he works within the sphere of the European Union. Um, so, but actually, the European Union, even for the majority of people, we only think of the European Union when we talk about receiving some kind of help. We don't have, and I'm saying this because I do work within the European dimension, and I do make campaigns regarding European values and trying to explain to the newer generations uh, why should they be more interested in European affairs, because the majority of people don't have a clear idea how what's happening in the European Union affects their day-to-day lives. They don't have this idea. Students have a small idea regarding Erasmus programs, but all the other things regarding, for example, rules and regulations, subsidizes agricultural programs, they don't know how that impacts their day-to-day lives. For the majority of people, not focusing on young people, it's not something that is present. Actually, it's not something that is present within the traditional medias. So we do have news in newspapers or in television, but comparatively, if we are going to compare the amount of time dedicated um, for example, the night TV broadcast news, that it's like really small compared with the national one. It would be normal, but not at this extent. So we may have one or two or none news from the European Union. Only if we have, for example, some treaty was made or something that was said within the high sphere of the European Union, they will give like a small section, but we don't see like a public debate regarding that. Even for these elections, the European Union is not on the table. It's not the issue that is being discussed. Normally, when the European elections um, are being held, we do have from ONGs like Young Educators or other ONGs here in Portugal campaigns to try to bring people to vote, because from all of the elections, the European elections are the least voted from by the Portuguese people. So yeah, that's unfortunately it's the state of the affairs here in Portugal regarding that. We do have some commentary TV shows, for example, and columns in newspapers, but the majority of people they just don't see how the European Union impacts their day-to-day lives, or even European values impacts their day-to-day lives.
So, like, um, the last part of questions. Uh, when you think about this election, which will be held in 4 weeks, uh, what do you think the results could mean for the Portugal?
I'm trying to have a positive outlook, and because Portugal has this matrix, we had one of the longest dictatorships in Europe. And for me, for example, memory of that time is really important, but for the majority of people in their day-to-day lives, that's not something that they have present. But and from my studies, I'm seeing signals
Mm-hmm.
and some strategies that was used during that time, not only in Portugal but in Spain and Germany and other countries during like the 40s and 50s, for example. And that does concern me, but I'm trying to have a positive outlook. So for me, the best case scenario was for the Socialist Party to win, not with the majority, but to win and have an alliance with other left wing
Mm-hmm.
parties. I think that would work better. That would, in terms of stability, that would have a bigger checks and balances. For my worst case scenario, because as I already stated, we don't have a really strong leader from PSD, from the right party. It's for him to win without a majority and to have an alliance with Chega.
Mm-hmm.
He's been stating that he's not going to do that, but from my own personal point of view, the fact that he's not a strong leader, that he doesn't have um, a strong idea and or ideas on how to navigate and how to take charge of the country, he probably, for the sake of reaching power, he may have this alliance with Chega. If he does not, and he does not reach the power, so if PSD does not reach power, and we do have the Socialist Party reaching government and building a new government, I believe that the other elections we are going to see a rise in Chega, a bigger rise in Chega, and if he does not reach government now, it's a really strong possibility for the
Mm-hmm.
next election. So, but I'm trying to have a positive outlook.
So, like, whatever result will it be, do you expect that this extreme right party will rise?
Yes, yes, because what we are seeing is that other before the rise of Chega, we had other more right wing parties, but they were democratical.
Mm-hmm.
They actually helped build Portuguese democracy, but they've lost and sittings in the house. And Chega, in that year that they lost sittings, so CDS was one of the parties. When CDS lost the sitting in parliament, we saw Chega electing new
Yeah.
members from them, and they are like, so they are rising in the ranks, they are electing. And if they don't reach, I truly believe that if they don't reach government now, they at least they will elect more deputies for parliament. And
So,
that's my main concern.
so the last question for this interview is European perspective of or what could the results mean for the Europe. So, if I'm correct in short, if some left-wing coalition wins the election, um, nothing dramatically change. But if there will be some right wing or extreme right wing coalition, uh, do you expect it will be also a change in positions in the European Union, and what is like the European perspective of the results?
So, the European perspective, I think for now it will be maintained as we are seeing, because PSD it's a part of the center right family of in the European Union. With 32% with the last polls that we have this week, I don't think that they will change a lot for this time in the European perspective. If the Socialist Party wins, it won't bring many more change. My main concern will be 4 years from now. We probably will see some changes at the European level, and I think that it will be on trend more or less for what is happening globally in the West. So yeah, that's my main concern. But for now, I don't foresee any change in the arrangement of the Portuguese Portuguese perspective regarding the European Union, because I don't think that Chega will have enough people elected to have a huge influence at the European level in the European Parliament for now.
Okay, so we can talk about that in a few years, maybe.
Yes.
Uh, so thank you for being here, and as I said, maybe next time.
Yes. Thank you for inviting me.